Let me ask you something. Have you become a people-pleasing machine? Smile here, nod there. Say BS when you mean no. Or why? Because you think softness is the same as kindness, yes. No, softness without boundaries is self-betrayal. You're trying to be so agreeable that you've become forgettable. People these days think that being soft is the highest virtue. But softness without strength is useless. It's like serving soup in a paper bag. Compassion needs courage. Kindness needs clarity. And real love needs a backbone. Look around. You're soft with people who use you. You're polite to people who disrespect you. You let people walk over your boundaries and then wonder why your soul feels exhausted. This is not kindness. This is fear wearing a mask of decency. Let me tell you something important. If you keep saying yes to everything, you are saying no to yourself. You are not here to be everyone's emotional sponge. You are not born to be liked by every Tom, Dick, and broken Nancy. Life is not about fitting into other people's comfort zones. It's about carving your truth like a sword through silence. We've been told since childhood, be kind, be nice, don't be rude, and somewhere along the way, we misunderstood that as be silent when disrespected, be soft when you're burning inside, be available even when your tank is empty. Let me say it clearly today. Kindness is not weakness. If your kindness costs you your truth, your time, your self-worth, then that's not kindness. That's sacrifice in the name of fear. Imagine this. You're at work and a colleague keeps dumping the responsibilities on you. But hey, could you just help me with this task real quick? You agree again. You smile again. They go home early while you sit there drowning in emails and stress. And deep down, you feel it. That little voice inside you whispers, for you're being taken advantage of. But you ignore it. Because you don't want to seem unkind. Because you think saying no might make you a bad person. So you choose silence. And that silence slowly eats away at your soul. This is how people confuse kindness with weakness. You're afraid of how others might see you, so you give them what they didn't even earn, your time, your patience, your energy. Let me ask you, told you that kindness means being available 24/7? Who told you that kindness means you can't say no? You see, real kindness isn't just about how you treat others. It's also about how you treat yourself. You're not being kind if you're destroying your peace for someone else's comfort. And you're not being kind if you're breaking yourself into pieces to keep someone else whole. Think about a mother. A kind, loving mother. She feeds her children. She comforts them. But when one of them misbehaves, what does she do? She sets boundaries. She raises her voice. She disciplines, not because she's cruel, but because she knows that real kindness includes truth, firmness, and structure. She knows that giving everything without limits isn't love, it's enabling. The same goes for you. You may think you're helping people by always being soft, always being there. But often, what you're really doing is teaching them how to use you. There's a difference between being a kind human and being a doormat. And the line that separates two is your ability to say, I love you, but I won't tolerate this. I care, but I have limits. You am kind, but I'm not weak. You can hold the door open for someone without letting them walk all over you. And can be patient without being passive. You can be generous without being drained. Let's look at another daily example. Suppose your friend constantly cancels plans last minute. They always expect you to understand, to forgive, to be chill. And you do every single time. Tell yourself it's okay. They must be going through something. But you know what? Over time, your respect for that friendship dies. And the worst part, you blame yourself for allowing it to continue. Then, this is what happens when kindness lacks courage. It becomes something people consume, not something they value. So here's the truth. Kindness is strength in action. It takes immense power to show grace when people test you. But it takes even more power to speak up, draw the line, and say, this is not acceptable. Because fake kindness avoids discomfort, real kindness confronts it with love and honesty. People might get upset. They might call you rude, arrogant, harsh, but let them be kind. In time, they will either adjust to your truth or remove themselves from your life. And both outcomes are a blessing. With Anne, you are not here to babysit the emotions of grown people. You are not here to please everyone while you bleed behind the scenes. You're here to live in truth, stand in clarity, and offer kindness with backbone, not just a smile. Kindness is not weakness. It is the fire that warms, not the fire that consumes you. So, next time you feel torn between speaking your truth or keeping the peace, remember this. And keeping the peace on the outside while you're at war inside is not kindness. It's self-abandonment. You deserve to show for yourself as much as you show up for others. You deserve to be kind and respected. You deserve to set boundaries without guilt. Because real kindness is not about being liked by everyone. It's about living in integrity where your heart stays open, but your soul stays protected. So go ahead. Be kind, but never confuse it with being weak. The strongest people are often the kindest, but they never, ever let that kindness be mistaken for surrender. And let's get things clear, boundaries on walls. They are not selfish. They are not rude. And they are not some dramatic declaration of I'm done with you. And no, boundaries are self-respect in action. They are quiet but powerful lines that say, I value myself enough to protect my peace. Most people don't lack love in their lives. They lack boundaries. And because of that, their love becomes painful, draining, and confusing. Let's look at a common daily situation. You have a friend or coworker who constantly interrupts your personal time. At what hours? They call, odd event. They want you to listen, to fix, to advise every time something goes wrong. You're exhausted, but still you pick up the phone. Why? Because you don't want to seem cold. You don't want them to think you don't care. But the truth, you're abandoning yourself to protect their feelings. And slowly, a little more of your energy disappears. You start resenting them, but you smile anyway. You go quiet in your frustration, hoping they'll just get it. But people don't read minds, they read pattern. And when your pattern is, I always say yes, then they will keep asking and taking. This is not their fault entirely, it's yours too. Because every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you let it slide when it hurts, every time you choose peace over truth, you are teaching the world how to treat you. Let me tell you something hard but necessary. You cannot expect others to value your space if you don't value it yourself. And imagine someone walking into your home with muddy boots. They stomp all over your clean floor. Would you stand there smiling, afraid to ask them to take their shoes off? No, you'd say, but please remove your shoes before coming in. So why don't you do that with your emotional and mental space? People are so afraid of being disliked that they keep opening the door to disrespect. But boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They are about inviting the right energy in with clarity. It's saying, I can love you, but I won't let you drain me. I can support you, but I'm not your emotional dumping ground. I can be here for you, but not at the cost of my own peace. And let's be real, setting boundaries is uncomfortable. especially if you've lived most of your life trying to be but the nice one. People might get upset when you stop overgiving. They might accuse you of changing. They might call you cold, distant, selfish, but let them talk. Because the ones who truly love you will adapt. They will grow. They will say, I understand. I respect that. And the ones who disappear, they weren't in your life for the right reasons anyway. Let me give you another daily life example. You work a full-time job. You have family obligations. You barely get time for yourself. And yet, when someone says, but can you help me with this? Or can we hang out tonight? You drop everything. You postpone your own rest, your own priorities. Why? Because you've been conditioned to believe that being available equals being a good person. But good doesn't mean always saying yes. Good means being authentic. Authenticity means having limits. Because the more you give without boundary, the more people expect it as your default behavior. And one day, when you finally say no, they'll act like you've betrayed them. That's why boundaries are so important. They teach where you end and where they begin. They say, but this is my space, my time, and my energy, my responsibility, and it's not up for negotiation. Even in love, especially in love, boundaries matter. And you can't pour endlessly into someone else's cup while yours runs dry. Real love doesn't demand constant sacrifice, and real love respects limits. You deserve to have relationships where you don't feel like you're constantly performing, constantly giving, constantly proving. You deserve to be around people who hear your no and don't question your loyalty. People who honor your space without needing explanations. Because at the end of the day, your life is your responsibility. Your time is sacred. Your energy is currency. Spend it wisely. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. So when you start setting boundaries, don't apologize. Don't over-explain. Don't feel guilty. Just say it simply. This is what I need. This is what I won't allow. This is how I protect myself. And remember, every time you honor a boundary, you tell your soul, but I've got your back. That is not selfish. That is power. That is self-respect. And how many times you said yes with a smile on your face while your heart screamed no? How many times have you agreed to do something not because you wanted to? Not because it aligned with your spirit, but because you felt guilty to say otherwise. This is a trap millions of people live in daily. And it's not just a bad habit, it's emotional self-harm dressed in politeness. You say yes when a friend asks you to go out, even though you're mentally exhausted. You say yes to help a coworker with their tasks, even though you're already drowning in your own. You say yes to your family's demands, your partner's expectations, your society's assumptions, all because you don't want to disappoint anyone. But here's the harsh truth. Every yes you say out of guilt is a no you are silently whispering to yourself. And over time, those silent no's pile up. They turn into resentment, stress, burnout, and emotional detachment. You smile and nod on the outside, but deep down, you feel empty, like you're living someone else's life. Let's take a real example. Imagine you had planned a quiet evening for yourself, just to rest. You've had a long week. You're drained. Then your friend calls. But hey, we're going out tonight. You're coming right immediately. Your inner dialogue kicks in. You don't want to go. But you think, or they'll feel bad. They might think I'm ignoring them. Maybe I'm being selfish. So you say yes, dressed. You show up. You laugh, you play along, but your soul knows it didn't want this. And when you return home, you're even more tired than B. You feel disconnected from yourself. With an That's what guilt does, makes you betray yourself to be accepted by others. And here what you need to understand. Guilt is not a signal that you're doing something wrong. Often, guilt is just a signal that you're finally breaking free from the cage of people-pleasing. We were conditioned to believe that saying yes is a goodie and saying no is a bad. But what's truly bad is pretending to be okay with things just to make others comfortable. That's not love. That's not compassion. That's survival. Real connection can't grow in guilt. Real love cannot bloom in the soil of self-abandonment. People think say no means rejection, but actually, saying yes when you don't mean it is the real betrayal. You're not being honest with the other person, and you're certainly not being honest with yourself. And saying yes out of guilt makes you a prisoner of expectations. You stop living your truth and start living their comfort. It happens with family too. Your parents want you to follow a certain path, a certain career, a certain lifestyle. You don't want it, but the guilt weighs you down. You think, well, they sacrificed so much for me. How can I say no? Yes, on your parents. Reflect them. But don't use their sacrifices as a reason to sacrifice your entire identity. Your life isn't repayment, it's a unique journey. You don't owe anyone your soul in return for their love. And this guilt-driven yes doesn't affect your relationships, it affects your sense of self-worth. The more you say yes to things you don't want, the more you train your brain to believe, but my needs don't matter. My peace comes last. My voice isn't important. And guess what? Other people start believing that too. They start assuming you're always available. They start expecting you to comply. So with day you finally say no, they act shocked. Not because you're being unreasonable, but because you trained them with your guilt-filled yes. You want to break free from this, and you have to learn the art of a clean no. A clean no is not aggressive, it's not defensive, it's simply truth, said with calm energy. You don't need a 10-minute explanation. You don't need to prove you're still a good person. Just say, I'm not available right now. I'd love to help, but I need to take care of myself first. I can't commit to this at the moment. And then stop and let the silence hold your boundary. You'll feel uncomfortable at first. The guilt will creep in. You'll feel like you're letting someone down, but in reality, you're doing the opposite. You are finally showing up for yourself. With Anne, you are finally honoring your truth. And when you start saying yes only when you genuinely want to, your yes becomes powerful. It becomes sincere. It becomes a gift, not a duty. People will respect you more. Your relationships will become clearer. And most importantly, you will start to trust yourself again. Because nothing feels more powerful than choosing your peace over guilt. Nothing feels more real than living from authenticity instead of obligation. So the next time guilt's knocking at your door, pause, take a breath, ask yourself, am I saying yes because I want to or because I'm afraid not to? Let your answer guide you. Let your truth protect you. And remember, a no spoken from self-respect is far more beautiful than a yes spoken from fear. There's a silent epidemic no talks about. It's not anxiety. It's not burnout. It's not depression, though all of those may follow. The epidemic is emotional exhaustion caused by being too soft for too long. You become the go-to person, the understanding one. The one who listens, who forgives, who bends, who never fights back. People say, Anne, you're such a good soul, and you smile, but inside, you feel like your soul is slowly disappearing. That's what happens when you're soft beyond your capacity. You leak energy. And that leak doesn't make a sound. It doesn't scream for attention. It just slowly and steadily takes pieces of you away. And let's be honest, most people who are overly soft don't even realize it. They think they are just being good. They think they are just choosing peace. Yeah, but the price of that peace, their own energy, their own identity. Picture this. You're in a group chat with friends. One of them constantly makes jokes at your expense, subtle jabs, and a little sarcasm. You feel the sting, but you don't speak up. You laugh along. Why? Because you don't want to ruin the vibe. Because you want to keep things light. You think, well, it's not a big deal. But it is a big deal. Every time you ignore disrespect to keep things soft and smooth, you're letting your energy bleed out. Or imagine this. You're in a relationship. Your partner always decides where to go, what to do, how to live. You give in every time. You don't want to fight. You don't want to seem difficult, so you fold again and again, until one day, with Han, you don't even recognize yourself anymore. You've become a background character in your own life, and that's what unchecked softness does. It wears away at the very core of who you are. And here is the worst part: people start expecting it. They assume you'll understand. They assume you'll forgive. With Anne, they assume you'll be okay with anything. Not because they are evil, but because your softness trained to expect your silence. And every time you comply without question, you reinforce the belief that your energy is free to take. Softness becomes your identity, but it also becomes your burden. You find yourself always tired, not just physically, but emotionally. You start resenting the people you once loved helping. You crave solitude, but even in silence, you feel heavy, like something inside you has been hollowed out. Because softness without limits is not gentleness, it's a slow surrender. It's like handing out pieces of your soul wrapped in kindness, while you starve in the name of love. Let's be clear, softness isn't the enemy. Compassion is beautiful. Understanding is powerful. Empathy is divine. But when these qualities come without a backbone, they stop being virtues and start becoming leaks. And you know where it hits hardest: your energy. Your inner fire, that spark that makes you feel alive, present, and grounded. You wake up every day feeling like you've nothing left to give. Not because your life is that hard, but because your boundaries are that soft. You see, energy is about just sleep or food or fitness. Energy is your emotional currency. Every decision you make, every conversation you tolerate, every unspoken frustration, it all has a cost. And when your default setting is be soft, be nice, be quiet, and you end up overdrawing from your emotional bank account. You give, and suddenly you're bankrupt. Then what happens? You get irritable. You snap at small things. You start avoiding people, ignoring calls, ghosting on commitments. And you think, what's wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. You're just depleted. Because being soft all the time is exhausting, especially when the world keeps taking and you never say enough. Softness without boundaries is like leaving your house door open and hoping only kind people walk in. That's not optimism. That's recklessness. Yes, be soft, but be sharp too. Have the courage to say, well, this doesn't work for me. You have the clarity to walk away from people who confuse kindness with weakness. Have the strength to protect your own spirit like it actually matters, because it does. You are not here to cushion other people's discomfort at the cost of your own fire. You are not here to be everyone's therapist and fixer, rescue, or emotional sponge. You are here to live fully, love honestly, and burn brightly. But that burn takes fuel. And if your softness is draining all of it, you won't have anything left, not for others and not for yourself. So next time someone says, "But you're so nice," you smile. But silently ask yourself, Then, am I being nice or am I being drained? And if the answer is the latter, it's time to shift. Not to become harsh, not to become cold, but to become whole. Because your softness is sacred, but only when it's protected. Only when it's forced. Only when it flows from strength, not guilt or fear. Protect your energy, guard your spirit, and remember, your softness should never cost you your soul. And there's a lie many of us were taught growing up. If you stand your ground, speak up, or show strength, you're being harsh. That if you don't let people walk all over you, you're cold. That if you choose clarity over politeness, you're much. But here's the truth that will set you free. Being solid is not being harsh. Being solid means knowing who you are, what you stand for, and not shrinking to fit into someone else's comfort zone. There's a huge difference between a person who is cruel and a person who is clear. The cruel person seeks to dominate. The solid person simply refuses to be dominated. The cruel person hurts others for power. The solid person protects their peace without apology. But in a world where being agreeable is often mistaken for being good, any with a backbone gets labeled or difficult. Let me take you into a real, relatable example. Imagine you're at work. There's a group project. You do 80% of the work while others take the credit. You stay quiet, thinking, but I don't want to cause conflict. Then one day, you decide to speak up in a meeting. You calmly say, but I'd like to acknowledge the hours I've put into this project and the responsibilities I carried. Suddenly, you feel the room shift. They look at you like you've changed. You hear whispers later, for they are getting arrogant. But are you arrogant or just done being silent? This is the moment where you must understand the power of being solid. You didn't attack anyone. You didn't insult. You simply stood in your truth. And truth always feels harsh to those who benefit from your silence. It's easy to stay soft and small, and it's easy to say yes and nod along. But to be solid, to express with grace and unwavering energy, that takes courage. Being solid means you don't shift with every wind of opinion. You don't collapse under guilt, pressure, or emotional manipulation. You don't need to raise your voice. You simply raise your standard. Look at nature for proof. The mountain doesn't shout, it stands. And the tree doesn't argue, it roots itself deeply. They are not aggressive, but they are immovable. That is the energy of someone who is solid. Now think about your own life. Think of the times you felt walked over. Not because you were weak, but because you confused being an icy with being non-confrontational. There's this idea that an icy people don't speak up, that they let things go, that they make everyone else comfortable even if it costs them their sanity. But what's the being an icy if you feel invisible? Real strength is when you can be kind and still say no. When you can love someone and still hold a boundary. When can be calm and still firm. Here's another example. Let's say you're in a relationship. You notice patterns, emotional manipulation, subtle gaslighting, maybe even toxic control. You address it. You express how it affects you. The response. You're being too sensitive. Or you're overacting. And why are you making things difficult? And now comes the test. Do you bend again just to keep peace? Or do you stay solid and risk being called a harsher? Staying solid might mean walking away. Not out of hate, not to punish, but to protect your spirit's slow erosion. Because being solid doesn't mean being unkind. It means choosing self-respect over social approval. It means being grounded, not guarded. You can still smile with Anne. You can still help others. You can show up with love. But now, you do it without selling pieces of yourself in the process. Think of people you truly admire not because of what they say, but because of how they stand. They are unshakable. They don't rush to please. They listen, but they don't absorb toxicity. They can hold space for others without losing themselves. That's the difference. Harshness is reactive. It lashes out. It controls. Solidity is responsive. It is conscious, centered. It doesn't need to overpower anyone, just doesn't let anyone overpower you. The truth is, many people label clarity as cruelty because it threatens their control. And many people will call you harsh simply because you've stopped being available for their convenience. Don't let those voices redefine your strength. Don't confuse silence with kindness, and don't confuse boundaries with bitterness. Being solid means you've done the inner work. You've cleaned your emotional house, and now you don't open door to every storm that knocks. So when people say, "Oh, you've changed," I say, "Yes, I finally stopped watering everyone's garden while mine was dying." You don't owe anyone a soft version of yourself that feels small, tired, or disrespected. You owe yourself one thing: to live as a whole, solid, and truthful human being. Let the world adjust to that. We've been taught a watered-down version of love. The sugar-coated kind. The quiet kind. Though I don't hurt anyone's feelings a kind. But let's shake off the illusion and face something raw and real. Truth is love. Not the kind of truth that cuts to destroy, but the kind of truth that awakens, that frees, that heals. Because any love that avoids truth is not love at all. It's comfort wrapped in fear. Let's start with something simple. Think about someone you deeply care about, a friend, a sibling, a partner. You see them heading toward a mistake. Maybe they are in a toxic relationship. Maybe they are drinking too much or chasing the wrong dream for the wrong reasons. You watch. You stay quiet. You say to yourself, "I don't want to interfere. If I don't want to upset them, if I'll just be supportive." But inside you feel it. You want to say, "But this isn't good for you," but the words stay locked in your throat because you're afraid that honesty will push them away. So you smile, you nod, you pretend, and in doing so, you let them sink while standing on the shore. That is not love, and that is fear pretending to be kindness. Real love dares to speak the truth even if it risks being misunderstood. Because when you love someone, you care about their growth more than their comfort. You want them to thrive, not just smile. But here's the thing: truth isn't always welcome. People get defensive. People pull away. People confuse honesty with aggression, especially when they use to sugar. So the world learns to stay soft, stay quiet. But that quietness, that's not peace, it's paralysis. Let's go deeper. Imagine you're in a relationship. Everything looks fine on the outside, but deep inside, something's off. You feel unappreciated and disconnected. But instead of saying it, you suppress it. You don't want to cause tension. You tell yourself, "But they are stressed. It's just a phase. I'll wait." And you wait and wait. Until one day, the silence between you is louder than any argument could have been. Resentment builds where conversation could have healed. Distance grows where truth could have bridged. That is the cost of not speaking truth in love. It's not the fights that break relationships. It's the things left unsaid. And truth doesn't mean being brutal. It doesn't mean throwing words like knives. It means speaking from the heart with intention, with clarity, with care. You can be gentle and honest at the same time. Saying, "I feel hurt when you ignore me," is truth. Saying, "You always do this. You don't care about me," is ego. Truth comes from love when it seeks to connect, not control. When it was a mirror, not a hammer. But people avoid truth because they think it causes problems. Truth doesn't cause problems. It reveals them. It brings into light what's already there but hidden beneath politeness, fear, and self-protection. And let's flip the script. Think of someone who was once truthful with you. Maybe a teacher, a friend, a mentor, someone who looked at you and said, "But you're better than this. You must stop making excuses. You own your choices." Maybe in the moment it stung. Maybe you felt angry, called out, exposed. But later, moments stuck with you. It changed you. Because deep down, you knew they weren't attacking you. They were calling you higher. That's love. Not the love that flatters, but the love that frees. And yet, we live in a culture that celebrates passivity. We confuse being agreeable with being kind. We think we are helping people by telling them what they want to hear. But lies, even kind ones, are chains. And truth, even when uncomfortable, is freedom. Now bring this back to daily life. And imagine your coworker keeps showing up late and dumping their work on you. You feel taken for granted. But instead of speaking up, you say, "Oh, no worries, I've got it." You smile, you cover, and inside you fume. Every time you swallow the truth to avoid confrontation, you're lying to yourself. And when you lie to yourself long enough, and you start feeling disconnected from your own life. The truth, when spoken with love, doesn't destroy, it aligns. It creates real connection because it says, "I trust you enough to be real with you. I respect you enough to not fake it. And I care about you enough to tell you the hard thing. You owe this to others. But more importantly, you owe it to yourself." Because when you start speaking the truth, when you stop editing your soul to make others comfortable, your energy shifts. You feel lighter, clearer, more alive. Truth clears the fog. It sharpens your inner compass. It draws the right people in and sends the wrong ones out. And that's not cruelty. That's love in its purest, most powerful form. So speak it. Say what needs to be said to hurt, but to heal. Not win, but to free. Not to control, but to connect. Because truth, when spoken from love, doesn't divide, it deepens. And in a world drowning in noise, your truth might be the only real thing someone hears. Not everyone in your life is there to love you. Not everyone who smiles at you wants the best for you. Some people don't come to pour into your cup and drink from it again and again and again. These are emotional leeches. They exist. They are not always loud, toxic, or obviously negative. Some come disguised as the friend who just needs to talk all the time. And some show up as the family member who always has a crisis, but never has time to ask how you're doing. Some are romantic partners who take your energy, your time, your love, your soul, and give back only enough to keep you hooked. You know who they are, because after every interaction with them, you feel drained, not just tired, empty. You walk away thinking, "Why do I feel worse after helping them?" You start to dread their name on your phone. You sense it, but you suppress it because maybe they are going through something. Maybe they need you. Maybe they don't have anyone else. But here's the truth. Needing someone does not give you the right to drain them. And being emotionally available does not mean endlessly consumed. Emotional leeches thrive on your softness. They know you won't say no. They know you'll keep listening, even if they repeat the same complaints for years and never take action. They know you'll comfort them, fix them, tolerate they've made that yours your identity. Let's look at a real-life example. You have a friend who calls you every other day in tears, always about the same problem. You give advice. You support them. You stay up late. You cancel your own plans to talk them through their drama. Weeks pass. Months pass. Nothing changes. Every conversation is a loop. They don't want to grow. They just want to unload. And you've become their emotional trash bin. But you still pick up the call. Why? Because you think helping them makes you a good person. Because you think saying we can't talk right now would make you selfish. Then, because you've been conditioned to believe that being needed is the same as being loved. But let's be real. Love is reciprocal. Support is mutual. If the energy only flows away, you're not in a friendship. You're in a slow emotional robbery. And that robbery steals from the most sacred parts of your peace, your clarity, your spark. Emotional leeches often use guilt as their weapon. They'll say, but you've changed when you set a boundary. They'll say, you don't care about me when you ask for space. They'll say, but you're all I have when you try to pull away. It sounds dramatic. It sounds manipulative. Because it is. The worst part. They make you feel responsible for their happiness. And that responsibility becomes a chain. But here's what you must remember. You were not born to carry everyone's emotional baggage. You were not put on this earth to be someone's permanent rescue boat. You are allowed to say, I care about you, and I can't be your therapist. I love you, but I can't keep giving without receiving. I want to see you grow, but I can't grow for you. That's not abandonment, that's self-preservation. Now, this doesn't mean cutting off everyone who vents to you or needs help, and there's a difference between someone going through a tough season and someone who's made being miserable their identity. The difference wants to heal. The other wants to feed. One says, thank you for being there. The other says, but why weren't you there when I needed you? Leans on you sometimes. The other leans on you always. And if you keep allowing it, don't be surprised when your emotional life feels like a drought. You have to protect your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. And you can't shine if you're constantly dimming yourself to keep others comfortable. And you can't grow if you're always being pulled at. You can't breathe freely if someone is always gasping through you. So take a hard, honest look around you. Who in your life fills your cup and who just keeps sipping. It doesn't make you cruel to draw the line. It makes you clear. It doesn't make you heartless to say, but this is too much. It makes you human. And the moment you stop being someone's emotional crutch, something beautiful happens. You get your energy back. You get your light back. You get your clarity back. You start having energy for your own dreams, your own healing, your own peace. And maybe for the first time in a long time, you finally breathe without someone else's weight on your chest. So yes, emotional leeches exist, and they will keep draining you until you decide to stop bleeding. Protect your energy. Your peace is sacred, and your soul is not a service center for those unwilling to heal.